was in full swing on Sodor, and Halloween was nearing. Great Waterton was celebrating in style, as all sorts of garland, decorations, and even the pumpkins were popping with pride, prominence, and pride. One evening, Sir Tom had arrived at the sheds, pleased and relieved that Great Waterton had finally been restored to its former glory. "I am proud to announce," boomed Sir Topham Hatt, "a special train has been rostered to give tourists an experience of Great Waterton at this time of year. Thomas, I have chosen you to take them tomorrow evening. Addie and Clarabelle will be accompanying you as usual." Thomas felt so excited. "I won't let you down, sir. That's a good engine. Noble duties for the rest of you," concluded Sir Topham Hatt, before turning and walking away. Thomas was so giddy, but Stanley, who recently encountered a ghostly spectre due to its tender being missing, looked at Thomas with genuine seriousness. "Whatever you do, be safe, don't mess with the supernatural." Thomas chuckled. "Oh, please, Stanley, the line was just restored yet. Don't forget about your encounter with Stella Kidd, Thomas." Thomas had to admit what Edward said, but secretly he wished tomorrow wouldn't be as foretelling as it was to be. The next evening, Thomas arrived at Elsbridge. Excited passengers boarded Annie and Clarabelle, and soon Thomas set off into the starlit night. They arrived at Great Waterton with no trouble, but by now the fog started to settle in. The passengers admired the spooky sights. Thomas simmered happily to himself. "See, Stanley, what did I tell you? Nothing to—" But Thomas was interrupted. He thought he could hear puffing of another engine, but there was no sign of the engine. The sound got closer and closer until... "Ours!" cried Thomas, as through the fog an old engine peered through with an angry glare on its face before vanishing into the mist. Thomas was so terrified he thought his safety valve would burst. Thomas raced backwards as fast as he could, the driver checking his speed. They didn't stop until they reached Marin. The passengers were more concerned than confused and cross. The guard tended the passengers as the driver and fireman were bewildered by what they saw. What was that? It may have been an engine that used to work at Great Waterton. Oh, Thomas is spooked out of its frames. Thomas didn't say anything. Once the line was cleared, Thomas reversed back to Elsbridge. There, Bertie took the passengers home, and Thomas headed back to the sheds. Stanley and Edward were already there. "I tried to warn you. He almost took me, but the tender was... Thomas remained silent, looking at his buffers. "You saw the other engine, didn't you?" Thomas's expression answered Thomas's question. In the late 1800s, the line thrived over passenger and goods traffic. Great Waterton was at the peak of its prime. One of its engines, a large tank engine, had operated the line for about 5 years. Then one day, it had an accident. It tumbled on its side, and with a thunderous explosion heard across the town, the engine was lost. There was no money to repair or even give it an overhaul. It was scrapped 2 days later. By 1902, Great Waterton was abandoned and forgotten, but many have said to have heard a ghostly whistle, followed by the ghostly shape of the engine before vanishing into the darkness. Thomas spoke up. "I was a silly engine. I'm sorry, Stanley and Edward. Maybe my encounter hearing Stella Kidd's whistle at the smelters reminded me that seeing the supernatural is, well, a common sight on Sodor." Edward smiled. The next night, there were no further incidents with the ghost engine or spectral beings. The tours went off without a hitch, and before long the ghost engine had finally moved on into the afterlife. Thomas was thankful that the engine was able to find rest after so many years, but he wished his brother would finally move on after haunting Sodor for a very long time. But that's a story for another day.